This is the Book of Dad with Robert Benson, an upbeat weekly review of personal anecdotes, helpful tips, and communal chat about the ups and downs of parenting. Your host, Robert Benson, knows that being a dad is not easy, but this show is for all the dads just trying to do their best. Now, here's Robert.
Hey, welcome to the Book of Dad radio show. This is Dr. Robert Benson. As always, before we get started, we want to say thank you to Jehovah. Thank Him for His Son, Jesus Christ. Thank Him for our families. Thank Him for work and our ability to do the things we're able to do. Book of Dad radio show, Life and Spirit, online only on the NASCA network. And as usual, we're coming to you with some great content. Today, I have a really great and special guest who's on the other side of the pond, if you will. But before I bring him in, I want to just kind of hobnob a little bit about something and say, you know, we're all motivated to do different things for different reasons. I mean, we're motivated to write, we're motivated to speak, we're motivated to play music, and all those kinds of things. Well, today, I'm going to talk to a guy who is motivated to do two things. One is play music, and the other one has led him to be a writer. But he's also a school, or what I like to refer to, of the School of Hard Knocks, which is being abused when you're a younger person. And that has provided fodder to this gentleman to pen and write and produce music and share his story on a level that's just unbelievable. So without stealing his thunder, I'm going to say hello to Mr. Brett Leboff, who is...
Hi, Robert.
Hey, how you doing, Brett? You doing all right today?
Sorry, Dr. Robert.
No, hey, man. You can call me Dr. Benson once. Just call and say one time, say, hey, Dr. Benson.
Hey, Dr. Benson.
Okay, so from this point, just call me Robert.
Okay, thanks. We got that out of the way.
So Brett, listen, man. You've penned a great book here. Called it "Staying Sane in the Music Game." Wow. Yeah,
I did that. I kind of look at it now and think, yeah, I did that.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I was inspired to write it. I mean, obviously, we've sort of spoken briefly about my backstory was, childhood sexual abuse by multiple people. A dad that ran off when I was 9, a struggling mother. I couldn't trust any of my family. Anyway, I hid all that. I hid it. I never spoke about the abuse because I didn't want to, the primary person I would have spoken to was my mum, and I thought she had enough going on. And I just hid it all of my life. So I'm 40 now, and I use comedy. I play drums from the age of 11, and I think that, that might have saved my life. I just buried myself in music from the age of 11. All of the friends that I met were from playing music, and it gave me a lot of social currency, but it was also a spiritual thing for me, for sure, which I now know I learned a lot from. Anyway, cut forward, I went into management, and again, all the way through, I'm hiding this part of myself, this pain. When I'm on my own, I'm depressed and I hate myself, but I'm not sure I was even aware of that. When I was socializing, I was the life and soul of the party, and was having good times and connecting with people. I messed up loads of stuff in management, but I had some successes and failures, and eventually I had bands on the road. I was handling everything myself. We had licenses all over the world, and I just burnt out, and I just threw it. I just fired all my acts, which not in necessarily the best way, passive aggressive or walking away, whatever it was, and. At that point, my ex-wife called me out. We'd been together a year. She looked me in the eyes and she said, Brett, you have got a lot of stuff that you haven't dealt with. I can see it. I'm here with love, and I can help you if you want to explore that. And I haven't done that speech justice, because the way that she said it blew me open. And I did a 1.5 years of psychotherapy and then a load of other processes. So then, 2 years ago, I was lying in bed. I was kind of falling asleep, and I got this idea for a book, and I mind mapped out the chapters, and I got to 7 chapters in the mind map, and I just started writing it, and I felt so compelled, like it just felt so right. That's what I'm meant to be doing right now, and I had no idea where it was going to go, and I carried on, and I finished it, and then we went to the editing. And actually, I had to read it lots and lots of times and ask lots of feedback. And I was like, oh, actually, I think this is good. This needs to go out there. This could help people.
You know, so I think it's great that you've been through so many things, Brett. And UK, United Kingdom, wow, some of the greatest artists in the world are from there. Elton John, Adele, Sade, the Stones, to name a few. A lot of people aren't quite sure about the UK and what it encompasses. Can you help us as we get through this before we go any further? Explain a little bit about the topography and the different country layouts over there in the UK.
Okay, so you've got like England that is stretching from, the south coast, sort of Brighton, Plymouth, those kind of places, going up to London. And then up from London, you go all the way up to Leeds and a place a beautiful countryside outside Leeds, and then you go up to Scotland, and then to the west, from London you'd go out to maybe Bristol, and then into Wales, and then obviously there's the water, and then you've got Ireland, and then you've got Northern Ireland, which is a part of Britain, and then Republic of Ireland, which is an independent. Yeah,
because you actually live in London, right?
Well, I live between London and Bristol. Okay. I work sort of Tuesday to Thursday in the office in Bristol for Diplomats of Sound, who are a booking agency, and I'm head of artist development there. I work with the younger artists on the agency. Give them strategy guidance.
Okay, I'm sorry. That's very impressive. Now, what are some of the things that, I talked to a lot of artists over the years, and obviously you've had your childhood that come into play, and you said that you kind of use music and playing the drums in particular to isolate yourself. How were you able to, get off aggression or vomit some of the things that you were dealing with through music?
Well, so the drumming had so many amazing aspects to it. Just grooving, using my body, getting out of my head. So I was focusing on, when I was practicing, I was obviously focusing on trying to nail that thing. So there's a lot of repetition. And then there was the social aspect of getting in bands and playing music with people. I realized, again, another inspiration for the book is that I realized only a few years ago that the attributes that I developed to become, because I went pro on the drums, I went to college and then got pro on the drums for 5 years, and the things that I developed in playing, getting to that level on an instrument, there's so many attributes that actually I think musicians, we have so many tools, and we don't integrate them into our daily lives.
I see.
And so it gave me all of those tools, but I wasn't aware of them. But also I was a groove player. I wasn't going for flashy stuff. I realized my job was just to lay down a really impactful groove that got the band going and in turn the audience, and I really enjoyed that kind of facilitation aspect of it, which then I see the link to going into management and then writing the book. But music was everything to me. It was absolutely everything, like my whole life.
Wow. Well,
and also the mystical aspect, when the places that you can go to, which is almost out-of-body experiences, and being so in the zone that you're not in this world almost. You're in a spiritual place.
Wow. That's impressive. Well, Brett, I tell you what, we're going to take a quick break, and then we're going to come back, and talk more about how music and the writing of this book has been therapeutic for you through your struggles and through your successes. This is the Book of Dad radio show. Dr. Robert Benson with Brett Leboff out of London, England, and we'll be right back.
Hear stories of successful people and their journey by tuning in to Let's Talk About Your Business with me, Francine Henry, every Tuesday at 7 p.m. on Life and Spirit Radio, only on the NASCA Network.
The U.S. dollar will collapse. Learn why you should buy physical silver and gold. Order Dr. G's P3. Plan, prepare, protect. Visit www.ygliv.com or call 800-705-6840.
Hey, we're right back. This is Dr. Robert Benson, Book of Dad radio show. And again, I'm with Mr. Brett Leboff out of London, England. One thing I've noticed is that, in the United States, we tend to name drop. We like to speak of and talk about who we've been affiliated with, who's helped us reach our levels, or who's helped us get motivated to do what we're going to do. But I find that that's not necessarily the case in other places. Like people don't like name dropping. They don't want to try to impress you by who they know and who they've dealt with. Not to say that that's what all we want to do here in the United States, but at any rate, I just wanted to say that I'm not going to ask Brett to do this laundry list of people he's dealt with and who he knows and all those kinds of things there. We're solely going to talk to Brett about motivation and the things that have helped him reach his level and how he's trying to help others reach theirs. But one of the things I've noticed when I read Brett's website and stuff is that he found music and writing therapeutic. Now, one came before the other, and I'm going to ask Brett if he could share with us how both have been therapeutic for him and how one have led him to doing the other. Brett.
Yeah, so when I was a kid, I was really lucky that I lived one of my local gig venues, concert venues, was Wembley Stadium.
Really?
Because I grew up in Watford, and it's on the same tube line. It's very, very close. So the second or third live show I ever went to was Michael Jackson on the Dangerous tour at Wembley Stadium. And from that moment, I think even from before that, I studied that guy. I read all the books about him. And then from there, I got really into Prince. And the thing that Prince kind of took over because I was aware of the fact that he had basically mastered so many instruments. He was producing, writing, and playing all the instruments on that first record he did.
Yeah.
That was the case, and he had to be persuaded by the record label to get banned for subsequent records. But anyway, I'm watching these people and studying their stories and realizing that they are embodying the human potential. I thought they were kind of godlike at the beginning, and then I was like, hold on a minute. The reason why these guys are so inspiring and so good is because they just focused on one thing, on the music from an early age, and that was it. And I was like, if we do that as humans, that is our potential. But often we'll get thrown around, And the book, for me, was therapeutic. I'll come back to, the performance side, but the book for me was so therapeutic because it was piecing together. I'm openly admitting where I went wrong, where other bands went wrong, and the lessons that we learned from that. So when I was writing the book, it was an extremely therapeutic process. And as I said, I didn't know. I just knew I should be doing that right now. I didn't know whether it was going to be good enough to actually put out there. But it ties together all of my experience. I think it's a unique experience to have had the childhood I had, then be a pro musician, and then be a manager, and then be able to have done enough work on myself to have the awareness to be able to write about all of that and give over suggested sort of wisdoms for how a musician can actually live a good life and not have to be tortured and tormented, which is often a driver for the creativity. Mm-hmm. But my suggestion is you have that creative drive anyway, and how would your music and creations look if you were able to get yourself into a zone, the zone that you get into when you're on stage or you're creating, and timeless, spaceless, almost heavenly-like, that you could get into that zone before you create. And so I've kind of drifted, but I feel like it's still relevant to your point, which I'll come back, I'll do a full circle.
No.
The idea is that we get addicted to altered states as musicians because we go to that zone, and then we realise that the go-to, when we're not in the zone, we want to go back to the zone, so we reach for the drink and the drugs. It's the classic altered state. And I realised very late on in my life that there are many other healthy ways to get to that zone without your instrument, without drink and drugs, and also the profound effects it has on me if I do a practice which I explain in the book. It's called zone technique. Gets you into that place, then sitting down on the drums, like what happens is it's I'm in the zone already. Mm. So just to come back to the Princes and the Michael Jackson, these big artists that inspired me, the thing that they nailed was being able to get into that zone and not feeling judged, just doing it, just doing their expression. Mm-hmm. And I think Prince did it to a greater extent almost, because he took a lot of risks with his creativity, and he didn't care. It was just that's what he was doing at the moment, and he actually didn't care if anyone liked it, because he was already on to the next thing.
Wow.
And I just charted these people's careers, and it inspired me so much. I guess hopefully that's kind of answered your question with loads of other stuff in there.
No, it's a great response, and I like the way you circled back. And I mean, when you're in journalism and when you're fleshing out points, that happens a lot. You're thinking as you're talking, and you're delivering as you're talking. I get it, trust me. But you touched on something before about focus, how the two of those people you mentioned, the Prince and Michael Jackson, how they had to make a concerted effort mentally and physically and spiritually to be who they were. And that leads me to ask you this question. So what you're saying is that people don't necessarily have to have a gift. They necessarily have to have drive to do something. Is that what you're saying?
I think the drive. So this is really interesting. Mm-hmm. Like I would not. I never forced any of my creativity. Mm-hmm. Like if you have the will to do that, and you love it, the only drive, I think the only drive that is successful is the one. It's like you have to do that. So I say to musicians, young musicians, nowadays it is different from back then. A lot of these musicians, they weren't doing it for a career, because back then, they had Elvis and they'd had some other, the Beatles and that, but they were growing up around that time, and it still didn't look like that was a career. It's just that these bands started blowing up and becoming superstars then. Now I think I see a lot of musicians now, they do that because they want to be in that game. And I say to musicians, if you weren't going to ever make enough money out of this to do this as a job, would you still create? And if they say no, I won't work with them, because it's way too hard to make money out of music, especially nowadays. You have to just if you don't do that, you're not doing anything else, and you're going to be incredibly depressed because you're not doing the thing you're meant to be doing.
That's interesting because, like I said, I know several young aspiring artists, and they have talent, but it's kind of analogous to famous athletes. I mean, for every one that has reached that pinnacle, if you will, there's another 100,000 plus that have the same ability or talent level, but the drive is different, the attitude is different, the determination is different. So,
yeah, you know what the other thing is about that?
What's that?
Is the drive is unstoppable when the let's call it like the artist believes so much in what they're doing that they're not doing it for the reaction. The reaction's on top. You know, in fact, they know that they're gifting this to society and they have to do that.
Wow.
And it's great, and they don't give a damn like what anyone actually thinks.
Wow.
I think that's like the highest level.
That's the highest level. Okay.
And the ideal level.
Highest and the ideal level.
Especially now. So I'll tell you what, with the book, for example, so this is interesting. This is the first, I've been advising bands. You know, as a drummer, I wasn't I was making the groove. I wasn't really a writer. I generally play what worked. You know, they'd let me have a crack at what groove I thought, whatever. That wasn't writing. I was facilitating. The book was the first time I've been through the creative process, and now I'm in the PR process, and I'm trying and putting into practice what I've told bands all the way along, which is I reread the book many times, and I had to make the decision: do I stand by this? Do I think that this is good and it's going to be a gift to society? And I made that decision. Actually, yes, I like this. And then I have to now say this is good. And that's been a big process for me.
Absolutely.
You know, to actually, without any arrogance, I'm saying, look, this is what I was meant to do. This is good. And actually, I don't care if people buy the book. The only frustration is I think it's a great tool that will help people, but I can't be look, I've got my other, I'm still doing what I do. I'm helping artists. This is running alongside. I'd love people to be able to get stuff from it, and I've had some lovely feedback.
Wow.
But ultimately, I did it. I've got so much from doing that and putting it out there because it was a great thing for me to do for me as well.
Copy. Okay, Brett, well, hold that thought. We're going to take another break. This is Dr. Robert Benson with Brett Leboff. He's really spitting some interesting stuff surrounding his thought process with the music game. We'll be right back.
Well, great day to every one of you. This is Dr. Gilbert Coleman, and man, yes, it's out. It has finally landed. Transforming the Minds of Men, the book, is out. You need to make sure you rush to get your copy right away. Man, the books are flying off the shelves as we speak to you. So therefore, you need to make sure you get your copy right away. You can go to gilbertcoleman.com. That's my website, gilbertcoleman.com, and order your book right now. I guarantee you're going to be blessed beyond measure because it will absolutely begin to address some of the things that you've been asking questions about for so long. Even some of the questions that you guys would ask me in some of the various men's conferences and seminars and workshops that I've done. But now the reality of it, the book is here.
Hey, Apostle Coleman, this is Tyrell Austin. I want to thank you for that book. Has literally changed my life. I read that book so much. It amazes me that you have that much wisdom to help people like that. I thank you.
Transforming the Minds of Men. You need to get your copy right away. Again, go to my website, gilbertcoleman.com. That's gilbertcoleman.com. You're about to have your life be blessed in a way like you've never been blessed before.
Hey, and we're back. This is Dr. Robert Benson, Book of That Radio Show, Life and Spirit Online, only on the NASCA Network, of course. But I'm talking to Brett Leboff. Brett is in London, England, and he just left off talking about a great piece about is this what you're meant to do or not? And once you discover that it's what you meant to do, what I extrapolate from what he was saying is that it doesn't matter whether you make money at it or not. You're doing what you think you need to share with the public. I mean, and I get it. I think that's a great point. But what I want to do at this point is I want to shift gears with Brett. I want to get Brett to circle back and go back to that place where he first got exposed to drugs and the other things that really kind of chipped away at his being that, caused him to participate in this self-destructive behavior, if you will. And then how obviously the book helped him pull his way out of that, but I would be very interested to know, was it peer pressure? Was it curiosity? Was it trying to seek that level you were talking about before that you mentioned people can reach without the assistance of artificial stimulus, if you will? Brett, talk to us about those first experiences, and obviously you realized that it really wasn't necessary because you did say that level, if you will, can be reached without it.
So I'm gonna be a bit argumentative and say that taking drugs was absolutely necessary for me.
It was.
Yeah. It's really interesting, man. I was very, very fortunate. I was doing a bit of smoking of marijuana when I was about 16, 17. But, I was always hanging out, remember, with creative beings, man. Musicians are so interesting people, they're such interesting people across the board. And so I was always in crowds where we were analysing our experiences. So we were getting high and we were talking about what we were feeling, which was absolutely amazing, Anyway, I got to university, so I went to college. At the first week of my first year, I was invited to go to, I met a keyboard player, we connected straight away, and he said to me, what are you doing Saturday night? I was like, I don't know. He said, there's this techno rave in the university, so that's our college. And I was like, what's techno? And he was like, it's layers and layers of beats, you'll love it as a drummer. I was like, okay. I turned up to their apartment just before we're going on the Saturday night, and I sit next to him and he goes, Brett, would you like a pill? And that's like ecstasy in the UK. And I was like, ecstasy? And he goes, yeah. And I was like, Ian, what will it do to me? And he said, it will just make you feel really, really nice and open you up. So to backtrack, one of the fortunate things that I had about not trusting anyone in my family was I was making decisions about my life very early on and disregarding any advice I got. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that happened to me, I think because I was playing drums, is I was in touch with a flow state of letting myself do anything that came up anywhere. And I was fortunate that I was hanging out with deep people. So anyway, I did this pill and I went to the techno rave and I was hugging people, I was chatting to people, I was talking to girls. I couldn't talk to girls, and after a few weeks of, of course, I went back for more and more, and I realised, because I was not sociable up until that time. Mm-hmm. The only people I socialised with were musicians for playing music. Really, a bit of a loner. Anyway, obviously, after some time, I realised that stuff that I was displaying was not this little pill. That was inside me. So I started getting inspired from that experience. And I did LSD and other drugs, so there's two sides to this. Mm-hmm. One of them was I did have an escapism to me, and a propensity to hedonism and escaping. But the other side of it was I was lucky, very, very fortunate, that the people I was doing drugs with, we were back from the club, we were having hours of conversation about mysticism and politics and ideas constantly, and analysing our experiences of the drugs. I was basically for 10 years, from the point of college into my professional drum career and then into management, I was using drugs very regularly, often for connection, to connect to people on a deep level. And I have to say to you and your audience, which I'm very clear about in the book, I still use substances for altered states, not that regularly, but I use them for connection, and I ask myself the question, am I using this to connect, or am I using this to get the hell out? And if it's ever to get the hell out, then I won't do it. But I find every 3-4 months to have an altered state experience like that is often very inspiring. In fact, probably only very inspiring to me. So, yeah, there we go. I've said it all. Get the cops round.
Yeah, you have. Hey, I want to call. Hey, be careful now. You're getting close to using profanity. We don't do that on the Book a Day radio show.
I'm sorry. That's 20 years in the music industry.
It's okay. It's okay. But listen, though, I think it's interesting because it begs a question for me. Is that so? On some levels, a cynic or a critical thinker might say that your creativity could in fact be altered or solely stimulated by false stimuli, if you will. Do you think that that's true, or do you think there's some truth to that?
So I'll tell you what it is the altered states that I regularly use are exercise, the zone technique, which is a form of meditation, but I don't call it that because I don't want to put people off discovering it. Right. Because I say that musicians know that zone. We're just going back to the zone that they get to on stage and all that kind of thing. So I basically, I don't like, if someone said to me tomorrow, you cannot do any substances again, it really would not bother me. Okay. You know, it could be taken away at any point. I might have that decision, but I'll tell you the point that I would stop is if I wasn't having useful experiences for my life that are not delusional, as in I've come out of those experiences and different actions and different perspectives are in my life.
You know, it's interesting, man.
And you have to be extremely careful who I'm having those experiences with. Of course. And check myself. I've got a girlfriend, fortunately. She's a clinical psychologist for 25 years. I'm extremely open about these behaviours. She would be the first person to say, Brett, enough.
That's cool. Well, you know what, Brett, I like when I'm thinking about some of the stuff you're talking about, it makes me think about some of the brilliant performers over the years, like especially in hard rock and different genres, like Kiss, for instance, or like Elton John. He has this crazy appearance, but he's a great performer. If you're familiar with Parliament Funkadelic and Bootsy's Rubber Band,
of course, man.
Those types of bands, you know, you see their garb.
That's my music, man. Yeah,
exactly. You see their garb, you see their performance, you hear them talk, and you wonder what is his motivation or what is their motivation. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, but yeah, I mean, you get it. But the thing, what I like about it is the fact that it's acknowledged, and you're saying is that. Just like everything, just about anything needs to be done in moderation.
Yes, and like, why do something if you hate yourself for it afterwards, or you have bad experiences, or anything like that? And one thing I would say, I have to caveat what I said with the level of awareness that needs to be had. And the level of awareness of my sort of magician voice in my head that would convince me to do things that are not helpful, that are risk-taking, that are self-destructive.
Okay, very good.
You know, I have to be hyper aware of that. That's like a Carl Jung, famous psychologist.
What's his name again?
Carl Jung.
Carl Jung.
Carljung. I think he was German.
Okay.
It's like a sort of associate of Freud. You know, that kind of time.
Yes.
Basically, he talks about the shadow, that we all have a shadow behind us normally, and it's our job to bring awareness to the shadow and bring it round in front of our eyes, so it doesn't go, but you're aware of basically the dark forces that could control us if we haven't got awareness.
Wow.
And I generally only have those altered states with people that are not escaping their lives. They love their lives, and they're very happy, stable people. But of course, I have seen it time and time again where, unfortunately, that's why I wouldn't advocate the use.
Right.
Because people misuse stuff, and that's the other wider, like, this is the big point of this. Everything in the world is neutral, and as human beings we have the special power whether to take that thing and use it with positive energy or negative energy.
Wow.
And that's just like as simple as a knife. You're cooking a delicious meal for your family, or you're stabbing someone.
Wow, very good. Brett, that's a great point. I love that. But we got to take another break. Staying sane in the music game, Arthur. It's Dr. Robert Benson, and we'll be right back. Hang on, Brett. Right back.
Are you struggling with debt collectors? Scared to answer the phone? Order Dr. G's Man Survival Kit and learn how to stop creditors. Visit www.ygliv.com or call 800-705-6840.
Hey, and we're right back. This is Dr. Robert Benson talking to Mr. Brett Leboff. And he's out of London, England, and he's talking some great stuff about artificial stimulus, if you will, in the way of producing things. When we left off, we were talking about Carl Jung, and he's one of those behavioral therapists from the Freudian range or zone, if you will. And he used a great analogy about using a knife to prepare a meal or to be destructive with it, if you will. I'm going to ask him to expound on that just a little bit more as we talk about that, how he's using some of these examples to motivate and discuss things with his younger people, and what his plans are going forward in the way of getting the word out and educating.
Cool. So, just to say, Carl Jung was dealing with the shadow stuff, where we were talking about bringing the shadow around to the front. I think my analogy about the knife, using it for positive or negative, it just came up. I think it's kind of an ancient understanding of the physical world and the human potential on the physical world and each other. I guess in terms of trying to get musicians to even read a book, that's very, very challenging. I've made it in really simple language, but there's also an audio book, so that's on Audible and stuff. But in terms of teaching this, I'm doing panel discussions. I'm at various music events with the book. I'm starting to do some podcasts. I've got podcasts on my website, which is www.stayingsane.org.
Okay.
And the last one I did actually is with a big music manager who trained to be a psychotherapist for the last 7 years. So we had a really interesting discussion about the behaviour of musicians. That was the last, number 5 we did. That's on the website and from all the normal podcast providers. But talking about this subject, so this subject has come up in the last few years. I quote the study in the front of the book, which is Professor Musgrave and Sally Gross saying four times as much. Musicians are likely to suffer 4 times as much like depression and anxiety as any other people. Mental health's already pretty high. I think it's like 1 in 5, and then for musicians they're saying it's like 72% more, whatever the mass is.
That's interesting.
So basically most musicians suffering from depression, anxiety, and poor mental health. And this conversation's been going for about 3 years, and it's on, it's bubbling basically, and I see the book as being part of that conversation and part of encouraging us to continue talking about it. It's like when I talk to independent artists, I say, like, from your first rehearsal to actually turning professional, it's probably like anywhere between 10 to 12 years. And I think the same for this conversation about us actually nailing it and really stopping, preventing. And I think, so we're at the beginning of the conversation, I want the book to be part of that, because it is focused on prevention. There's loads of tools in there, and the explanation for how I got to using those tools through all of these terrible experiences and how things can go wrong. So it's kind of joining all the dots and helping people to put things in their lives, to live much better lives for themselves and then for others.
Hey, but let me ask you a quick question about that, because I think that is extremely interesting in that you're saying there's a better than 50% probability that musicians are 70%. Depressed on some levels.
Yeah.
I mean, what do you think that's attributed to?
So this is the tenets of the book, learning how to visit that altered state zone without anything else other than, yourself and your breathing. This is an interesting one, right? Musicians, we became musicians because we wanted to get out of the system of the rat race and all these kind of ideas of, like, I just want to create music and simplifying life. And then once you master your instrument and you're in a great project, you can kind of coast, and you don't plan or structure in your life. It's the next gig, the next show, but there's a lot of space in between. And I suggest that the part of the reason you're all over the place, you've got no grounding, and actually I think it's the responsibility of this musician that's tried to escape that kind of imposed structure, must impose a structure on their own life that they're comfortable with, that grounds them. So there's a regular practice doing something else other than music, or there's a regular activity. For example, I've got a friend of mine who teaches in a school for one day on a Tuesday. He doesn't need to do it, but he does it because it really helps ground him and take him out of the bubble. And that's it. It's like the imposed structure on your life, whether it's exercising every day for half an hour or whatever it is that you must do.
Something else.
Because if you don't do that, you there's the danger. You need something to bring you out of that bubble of the creative world, because you can, in the end, believe that you're on a different level than anyone else.
Well, let me ask you a question about that, because excuse me, that brings a great point up. I mean, everybody's familiar with the story of Michael Jackson and the Jackson kids and how they were pressured by their father to be a performer. There's a great movie about a young lady that was out of the UK called Beyond the Lights. Remember that movie, Beyond the Lights? Did you see that movie?
No, I didn't.
But anyway, she's this high-level performer, pop performer, but her mother pretty much drug her to the point where she was, and it drove her to try to commit suicide. Well, as it turned out, what she was doing was something that she really didn't want to do. And I tend to wonder if those types of things are also contributing to this mental instability that a lot of performers have, is that they're actually being pressured to perform and to do things by other people other than themselves. Have you run into anything like that in your...
It's so interesting that you call that, because what I think we're talking about is the result of that is an unintegrated human. So if you're creating and expressing, but you're not, in some way you don't believe in what you're doing, I think that has profound effects on your mental health.
Right.
Because it's kind of it's like me hiding the sexual abuse from friends of mine who I knew for 15 odd years, and then I told them, and that had profound effects on my life when I started admitting what had happened to me, and I'm suddenly coming out of the shadows, and I'm unapologetically me now, because I've got such a shocking story that I'm willing to talk about and accept, that it blows people open, because it's an intense authenticity. Like, I don't use it as a tool, like, as in I don't use it for people to go, oh, that must have been awful. In fact, I hate that response, Right. But it's coming back to what you're saying. It is. If you're doing this stuff because someone's telling you and you don't believe it, that is, I think, you nailed it. Like, it's a massive issue for mental health.
Absolutely. Self-imposed versus externally imposed pressure. Well, Jeff, listen, man, it's been great having you on the Book of Dad radio show, and you provided some information about how to track you down. You gave us your website. Is there any other ways we can reach out to you? I'll
do that again. So the website is www.stayingsane.org. So it's stayingsane.org. And I've got loads of videos up there, like bite-sized videos. There's audiobook sample chapters of about 3 or 4 chapters, and the introduction kind of lays out the ideas in the book, so you can get a little taste for that. And then there's links. I think that's called Try Before You Buy. Then there's links to everywhere you can get the book, and it's on all the normal, Amazon.com and Kobo, and wherever else you can find it. Kindle, paperback, or as in audiobook that's on Audible.
I thought you said something to me about the first 2 people who visit your website and mention the Book of Dad radio show will get a free book. Is that what you said?
Well, we didn't actually discuss this, but I would be delighted. I'd be delighted to give free copies. If you know how much the post is, by the way, from the UK, luckily it's on Amazon.com.
Right,
I will buy 2 copies.
Absolutely, and I'll make sure that the first 2 people that visit your website and mention us will get a free book, and I'll cover the postage.
Okay, great.
All right.
Nice.
So, Brett, thank you so much for being on the Book of Dad radio show, and we're going to be in touch with you real soon.
Okay.
All right.
Thanks, Robert.
Hey, you bet. Take care. Hey, this has been the Book of Dad radio show. We've talked to a guy who we could have talked forever about this topic. It's outstanding stuff. But the one thing I want to close this show out is by saying is that abuse is never good. Even though sometimes, obviously, and publicly, it can produce great things and bring the best out of people, but it most certainly brings out the worst at times, too. So if you know of abuse, if you're being abused, get help, and if you see it, report it. This is Dr. Robert Benson, Book of Dad Radio Show, Life and Spirit Online. Be sure to check us out on the various venues that are out there, Spotify, Spreaker, iTunes, etc. And we'll talk to you next time.
You can find out more about Robert Benson by visiting his website, thebookofdad.net, where you can purchase your own copies of Robert's books, The Book of Dad, Quotes for a Lifetime of Wisdom, and the Book of Dad 2. More quotes and anecdotes for a lifetime of wisdom.